I thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for bringing science back into the forefront of this committee's business. Thank you for your leadership in convening a long overdue conversation. You've done that with over 22 climate-related hearings. Under your leadership, we've discussed climate change and what it is doing to water infrastructure, federal water infrastructure in the arid West. We've talked about how CO2 emissions are not only heating up the planet, but driving ocean acidification and disrupting coral reefs. Alongside the work of the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis and other committees of jurisdiction, this House has demonstrated the wide range of threats from climate change and how we will need a robust response to meet this crisis head on. And of course, this committee has some of the most important jurisdiction. It is important, in my view, that any bill, no matter how well intended, that does not respond to this crisis needs to be recognized as part of the problem. We should plant trees. We should perfect cross-laminated timber. I'm ready to work with colleagues across the aisle on those things right now. But we should not call these climate solutions if we are using these strategies to continue deforestation and continue developing and burning fossil fuel at a completely unacceptable and unsustainable pace. And we also have to respond to the current administration's binge drilling proposal for public lands and water. Any bill that does not address that is not up to the challenge of this crisis. Any bill that does not put a stop to the massive increase in drilling on public lands and waters by permanently protecting places like the Arctic Refuge and our coasts will not be enough. Any bill that ducks the issue of drawing down fossil fuel production on public lands is not enough, because the IPCC is clear. There's already too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We're continuing to emit way too much more. We have to dramatically lower emissions, including from fossil fuels, and even then, even under optimistic scenarios, we're still going to be left with too much CO2 in the atmosphere. So it's only when we get to net zero that some of these wonderful drawdown strategies like Mr. Westerman's tree planting and natural systems can then begin to provide that last full measure of solving the climate crisis. If we want to talk about trees, let's focus on what will work. And Dr. Staver, in your testimony, you note that avoiding deforestation is just as important, if not more so, than reforestation. Of course, we're running out of time to address this climate crisis, and successful regeneration takes decades to centuries to recover carbon storage potential, especially if we're talking about temporal and boreal forests. My friends across the aisle want to plant some trees, which is great, but they also want to roll back protections that will allow clear cutting in places like the Tongass. So I want to ask you, would you agree that Tongass National Forest in Alaska, 16 million acres of temperate rainforest, is exactly the kind of forest we should be protecting right now for its climate mitigation potential?
Absolutely, I agree with that statement. So the Tongass is a temperate rainforest. Temperate rainforests are characterized by, there's a lot of trees in them, but they're also, I would encourage anybody to go look at pictures of these systems. These are systems with astronomical amounts of soil carbon. So if you were, for instance, to open up that system to logging, you would remove a lot of the trees, you would make wood products out of them, but you would wind up losing a lot of the other stored carbon in that system as well. And then the other issue with deforestation gets to the issue of timescales, right? So if we were to deforest these systems, we start emitting more carbon now, and we don't benefit from the sequestration of carbon now. And any reforestation is only likely to accrue benefits in decades, well past a time frame where it makes any particular difference. So preventing deforestation in systems like the Tongass is absolutely should be a priority.